Knudsen,
Mr. Tursky,
this is Two Guys Talking Golf.
welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back from South Florida.
Yeah.
Beautiful South Florida.
How nice was that?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I had a rough experience upon landing.
Really?
Well, it wasn't like actually rough, like not that big of a deal. But so I took a red eye out there from Arizona. Try to get there early on Monday, you know. Start off the week right. So I'm coming from the rental car, whatever. I get my rental car, head over to the course. Phone dies in the rental car. I don't have a USB plug-in, so phone dies like, 10 minutes left of the trip, and I'm like, whatever. I can get myself there from here. I could not get myself there from where I was. So I keep making wrong decision after wrong decision on the turns, and I'm telling you, I end up in swampland. Like, I know it's bad when I'm looking at signs that say, like, good bird viewing area, like, pull off here to see the birds. And I am in the swamps for like an hour and a half. I'm like, I'm just going to pull over at the next gas station or McDonald's or whatever, like, either charge my phone or get a car charger. Never happened.
Yeah.
Like, it just never, I was just driving around for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
So
It was absolutely brutal.
So was it that? So you had a cable? You just, like, the car had no charging, like nothing to plug in, or did you just not have a cable?
Nothing to plug in. No, I had a cable, but it's like one of those iPhone. It's like one of those iPhone Mac cables. Like, it doesn't have a USB, and then it plugs into a block that like, goes into an outlet in the wall.
Yeah.
So it didn't have any. Yeah, USB-C. So I didn't have anywhere to plug the actual phone into. I was literally considering just stopping, knocking on like someone's door and being like, "Can I charge your phone for a second?" Like, I am in no man's land.
You're like, yo, I see you have a plug on your porch.
I'm just chilling with the gators and the birds. Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to sit on your
So
porch,
I was just walking by. I noticed you have an outlet. Yeah. I was considering. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like dead tired, coming off a red eye. Yeah. So
because that's the last thing when you take a red eye.
Welcome.
When you take a red eye, the last thing you want to do is anything but just get to your, like, usually for me, like, it's red eye home from West Coast to East Coast. And all I want to do is get home, get in bed with as little trouble as possible. Like, absolute minimum. So I can only imagine how bad and stressful that was.
Yeah, I mean, I was all discombobulated. I was like, wait, am I dreaming? I don't know exactly what's going on right now, but whether it's reality or a dream, I am lost. I am very lost. But we ended up getting there.
Literally and mentally.
Yeah. And so going into the Honda, saw the field list. I was like, it's not the strongest field of the year coming off the Genesis. I wonder what content's going to be like. I wasn't necessarily super hopeful on the content. When big names aren't there, you never really know. I was wrong.
That's true.
Content was flying this week, Nuts. There was good stuff going on. Yeah.
Because I got to think, like, the bigger the name guy, the less that he cares to sit down and have a conversation with anybody. Whether it's you, whether it's whoever. All those big name people are out there like, I mean, let's be honest, the Rorys of the world, those guys, they're getting asked by every single person for something. So, like, they, to them, it's just like, get me off the range, get me to the, my practice holes, get me to whatever. And they were open, huh? They're feeling a little chatty out there.
Well, I think you're right. I think there's a direct correlation between however many wins and majors you have to your willingness to talk to me. I don't know what I don't know what that says about me, but it's direct.
It is directed right at you. Directed right at you. Like, you walk up and you're like, "Hey,
we'll definitely get." He's talking.
Well, he wasn't there.
Yeah, he's talking.
Yeah,
he's only got a couple. He's only got a couple wins.
Exactly. Now, you walk up to a guy like Rory, which granted doesn't have a green jackets, but major wins. You kind of go like, "Hey, man." He goes, "Hey, have you seen this resume? You seen this? Move along, son. Just move along.
Don't talk to me." Yeah.
don't look at
Rory
me.
actually
don't
knows
talk
his
to
equipment,
me.
though.
Does he?
Rory knows his stuff, though, when it comes to equipment. Yeah. He's
I'm a little
he's like
shocked
a
by
mini
that.
gearhead.
I'm a little
He stays
shocked by
pretty
that because
woke.
he doesn't.
Just in general, like he keeps his mental game tight. He keeps his swing tight. He just keeps like his general perspective on life tight, and so he keeps up with his equipment too.
I mean, he just isn't a guy that
Fun
you see
fact about
changing a
Rory.
lot. Yeah, but he's a guy that you don't see changing a lot. So, in terms of being a gearhead, like he wouldn't be the first guy to put in there because when you look at his bag from beginning of the year to the end of the year, it has a couple pieces that go in here and there, maybe a different driver shaft for a short time, whatever. But realistically, like what he starts with is for the most part what he finishes with, and there's just not a whole lot of change for him. So it's just one of those things that it's not like Charles Howell III, Chucky Three Sticks. The guy's got new stuff all the time. He's always Rory. You just don't see that. So it's very interesting that he's such a kind of a low key or in the closet gearhead.
It's kind of just in the way that Tiger is. Like, Tiger knows his stuff when it comes to gear. You don't see him change a lot, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know about it. And, like, when he makes a change, he's very intentional. And Rory's the same way. Like, last week he throws in the P790 driving iron with the Ventus 10 TX Black shaft in there. Like, yeah, he might not be testing everything under the sun and changing week to week, but when he gets it going and he starts testing, he's intentional with it, and if it's better, it's going in the bag. And he knows why things work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that definitely makes sense. I mean, like you said, the whole Tiger thing, Tiger's super into gear. He just, like, if he knows something isn't for him, he's just not even going to try it. Like, there's no point. Like, don't even put it in my bag. Let's just
Speaking of
roll
Tiger,
with what works or what should work. Yeah?
Speaking of Tiger, did you see the Stevie Williams story about the Tiger golf ball from the early 2000s?
I saw the headline, and I unfortunately hadn't had a chance to read it yet. But I did see it, and I meant to read it.
So it's basically just talking about, when Tiger switched the Nike ball solid core construction, which was like, light years ahead of what they were using at the time. The wound core. Obviously way better than that, and just how he had like a 1 to 2 to stroke advantage every time he teed it up. Now, of course, he wasn't the only guy, like literally the only guy, but he was definitely at the forefront of that change on the PGA Tour, and he used it to his advantage. Like we were saying, Tiger's very intentional when he makes a switch, and when he went to Nike, obviously that was like a big part of it, getting into that new golf ball. And then he reels off, 4 straight majors, 1 billion PGA Tour wins. I mean, it was no surprise at the time. He was a world beater regardless. Like, it doesn't matter what golf ball he was using. But, of course, he also has, like, the best golf ball as well. I just thought it was interesting. Stevie Williams weighed in. I mean, it's nothing that we didn't know before. So it's not, like, a huge deal. But him kind of giving that behind the scenes was pretty cool.
Yeah, and to think that, like, Nike at one time basically had the best golf ball on the market is kind of a funny thing to think about now. Just knowing the big, the top golf ball guys now. I mean, when you look at the Titleists, the Callaways and TaylorMades, whoever, and to think like, oh no, Nike up here, buddy. Like, that's just a crazy thought to think that they were basically the number one ball for a short period of time. Because unfortunately, that didn't last.
Yeah, rest in peace to Nike.
I mean, back in the original TG2, we had some great Nike conversations, some great Nike photos of old Spy stuff and all that. But we could be honest. It's just between two golf guys here that their golf ball was nowhere near the best out there. It just wasn't.
Yeah, what I always think is interesting about Tiger and his golf ball through the years is that he always kind of used a prototype, but it was higher spin. These days I feel like golfers are so obsessed with getting a golf ball that's lower spin, but he wanted higher spin so he could have more control with the irons, more spin around the greens, and he kind of was just like, okay, if I give up a couple yards off the tee, I give up a couple yards off the tee, but I'll probably be more accurate, and then when we get around the greens, it's game over. And
Oh, yeah.
I think for like 90% of golfers these days, that's just out the window. Like, they're like, just give me the longest flying golf ball I can get, and hopefully it spins a little around the greens. It's just funny. I feel like we don't listen to Tiger enough. It's like he only has 15 majors. I mean, why would we listen to him?
Well, the other part of it too is that he grew up. I mean, most of the guys in that era and everything, but he grew up playing this super high spin ball, and that's how he learned. And his game was to work the ball and hit these shots and hit these draws and fades and hit all these shots in the bag. And as guys on tour will tell you now that with the new ball, if you're in the rough or there's certain situations, you can't really hit those same shots that you could back then. And where, yes, the driving distance and the driving and all that has been greatly probably helped by low spin, the short game and some of the creative shots that you could hit before, you just can't do anymore. So, I totally get where he probably flourished with that higher spin ball. And, yeah, I think I've heard stories of, like, playing kind of like alternate shot type stuff like Ryder Cup where guys were stuck using his ball and, like, this thing, like, I can't play it. Like, he would have to go use another person's ball because – They couldn't use his. Like they couldn't control it. So
he plays a different game in so many ways. Like the loft of his irons are old school.
Oh, yeah.
The golf ball is higher spin. But yeah, while he was up there with good old Jimmy Nance. He called him Turbo at one point. It was so funny. I was absolutely dying laughing. But yeah, so they got into a talk about like rolling back the golf ball and whether the new golf ball is good for the game. And Tiger's like, that's how you should do it. Just increase spin on the golf ball, and you'll basically get rid of the distance. Of course, Tiger wants to go that direction because that's just what he wants to do. He's an old school guy. He's like, yeah, let's get these youngins in a golf ball that actually spins. But I thought that was funny. I mean, he did great on that little in the booth interview. Sometimes I just like kind of cringe waiting for Tiger to be like super awkward, but I thought he killed that.
Yeah, no, he and I totally get what he's saying too, and I agree. Like, I mean, I'm not necessarily on that huge. I'm not standing on a soapbox yelling for people to roll back anything right now. Like, I kind of just want to wait and see. But he's 100% right. Rolling back the golf ball is the only way to do it fairly, I think, on tour. But the other side of it is yeah. I mean, can you imagine Bryson playing a super high spin golf ball with driver? Like how. Like how much is his game going to have? Yeah, I mean, how much is his game going to have to change? And guys like that, there's just certain players are really going to have to change your game a lot to play that kind of equipment. But and I agree with you. I think Tiger was, and I think Tiger being really good in the booth with Jim is part of this whole new Tiger. Like the guy he's not the killing machine anymore like he was, early 2000s, late 90s. He's more of a personable guy. He kind of lets a little bit of him show through now, and I think that only helps with the media, whether it's in the booth, whether it's an interview, whether it's whatever. I think he's just a more personable guy, and I think he's really enjoying being who he is now instead of having to be the robot golf killer. I mean, he doesn't have to be that guy necessarily anymore, and it's fun to see. It's fun to see the lighter side of him.
Even if he wanted to, I don't know if that's possible anymore. Just so much about him and his life and like his mistakes have been exposed. So at this point, it's just like, well, I might as well be myself. Like he is a personable guy. Yeah. He's not just a robot. He's a normal human, and he's kind of just letting that side through. He's kind of letting himself be himself in the public instead of just trying to be like the mysterious robot who says nothing and he's perfect, Unfortunately, we saw a lot of mistakes, but, I think it allowed Tiger to kind of free himself up and be that guy. Now, speaking of some mistakes, depending on your perspective, Phil, I mean, I don't want this to be a recurring segment. Like, it's not this type of show, but if we're talking golf, it's definitely the biggest golf topic right now in the world. What did you think about Phil's quote unquote apology?
I mean, I don't know. It's weird. So I sat the other night on Twitter after it came out, just scrolling through because most of my Twitter feed is golf, Detroit Lions, and Michigan State sports, and that's about it for me in terms of Twitter. Like that's about all I follow.
Mm-hmm.
And
eclectic.
I was watching, and Michigan State was, I think, getting manhandled by Iowa, so that was no means. Didn't need to follow that. But yeah, I mean, the amazing thing is just like him coming out, kind of saying, "Hey, I'm kind of sorry, but it might not have been all my fault," and it was just an interesting paragraph that he wrote, or multiple paragraphs, and then to hear, the responses from a lot of journalists that came out and were kind of saying, "Hey, I don't think this is all true," and all that. It's a really interesting situation, and now for Phil to kind of say, "I'm taking some time off," and he's lost some sponsors. There's just so much to it. It's crazy to think, but I think in a way he probably does regret a lot of the things he said. But I mean, hindsight's 20/20.
It's very clear that he wrote that apology, and it wasn't a PR team. Because
I don't think it was.
There's no way a PR team would have came up with that. But I just think the wildest part of it is him trying to say, like, those comments were off the record. Now, say what you want about Alan Shipnuck, but like he's a real reporter. There's no way that he would have taken literally just like off the cuff, off the record responses and put them out. Like, I just don't believe that to be true.
Yeah, I doubt that either. I mean, every journalist is out there. I mean, they've made a mistake, or maybe published something that they even thought. But yeah, nobody's going to blatantly go off and say, "Oh, this was told to me off the record," boom, and just lay it out there. Like, it's just not going to happen. I mean, especially for a guy like that who's been in the golf journalism business for a long, long time. Like, this isn't his first years. This isn't his first rodeo. He's been around a long time, and he's very well respected. So yeah, I don't think that he would have taken that stuff, off the record and just published it either.
And like in Phil's response, basically he says it's not off the record because he starts by saying like, "Oh, like this was a untrustworthy journalism move," and then by the end of it, he's like, "I'm the one that's fighting against the PGA Tour and doing this and that." It's like, well, was it off the record, or like, are you being brave by doing this? Like, which one is it? Because those are two hypocritical statements right there, bud.
Yeah, you can't do both. You got to pick one.
All right, so let's get off this Phil topic. Let's get into the Honda Classic because we have a bunch of gear topics here.
All right, I like it.
You ready to rock?
When it comes to gear, I'm always ready to rock.
All right, Knudsen. All those serious topics aside, let's get into the good stuff.
The nitty-gritty gear.
Yes, sir.
I like it.
All right, so we're just going to start ripping through some interesting gear topics from Honda.
Nice.
PGA National.
Love it.
Good old West Palm Beach coming through with the content. Whew. All right, so we all kind of got like, not our first introduction because he did finish T2 at Sanderson Farms last year, but I think he grabbed everyone's attention at the Genesis with his T2 last week. Cameron Xiong.
Yeah.
Young Cameron Xiong, the 24-year-old rookie. I mean, this kid hammers the ball. He's got that little pause at the top of the swing. He's fun to watch. He just lets it rip.
Dude, yeah, fearless. I mean, literally fearless.
Yep. So I talked to JJ Van Wiesenbeck, Titleist Tour rep, who works with him. Well, he started working with him when he joined the PGA Tour. And so his father is his swing coach. His Cameron Young's father, much like JT. His dad has been the head professional at Sleepy Hollow in New York for like years and years and years. And he's his swing coach. He's his eyes and ears out there as his instructor. So when he came to the PGA Tour, obviously crazy speed. Like, he hits 190 ball speed. That's his average. But he had this swing flaw. Not necessarily a flaw, but he was 6 to 7 degrees inside out, which obviously presents some issues. You're either going to hook it pretty bad from there, or you're going to struggle with a block. So he had a driver to match that. His TSI 3 was in like the super draw position to kind of get away from that block. He was in that H2 position, 9 degrees. So he makes this big swing change trying to neutralize the ball flight, get his swing back to square. So now he's hovering around, 2 degrees, 1 degree, inside out. It's kind of straightened out his swing, feeling good. Didn't change the driver yet, though. So we still had the driver set up to a 6 to 7 degree inside out path, neutralized the swing, didn't change the driver. So JJ meets up with him at Torrey, and he's like, Cam, what's changed? You're not hitting it as well as you were, the first time around when we did the fitting. He's like, well, I changed my path by about 4 degrees. He's like, Cam. we gotta change the driver to match it up. So they spent a while out at Torrey. They changed the hosel settings. They changed the SureFit CG. Got him into a 10 degree TSI 3, and obviously it worked. I think he finished he went T26, T20, and then T2. So obviously feeling pretty good with the driver. Riviera is not the easiest track to drive on. And somehow his driver's not the most interesting thing in the bag. He's got this custom Scotty Cameron putter. And me and you know a little bit more about club building than I do. So even when I talk to like the guys on the tour truck, sometimes I still need to translate it with you offline. So I sent you the picture of Cam Young's putter, and I'm going to let you rip and kind of explain what's going on here with this custom knuckle hosel he's got.
Yeah. So the Knucklehead, or the knuckle hosel as they called it isn't really new. I think Scotty brought it out in like 2011-ish, 2012, 2010, something around that. There was a knuckle. It was kind of the original kind of knucklehead for him, and basically what you're doing is, most people know about a plumber's neck hosel. So it's a piece of steel, kind of has a 90 degree right hand turn, and then you have basically the hosel where the shaft fits into, and it's a really traditional look. A lot of people like it, but on tour and even in the amateur world, like, you can't really adjust that. Like, it is what it is. So with the knucklehead, as they call it, you basically take a piece of shaft tubing to make the straight portion of the hosel. So from the head to that 90-degree bend is a piece of basically shaft tubing. And what you can do is you can cut it to whatever length you want to adjust the toe hang. So the longer you make it, the closer to face balance it gets, and the shorter you make it, the more toe hang it has. So depending on the player's preference, their stroke, whatever, you can adjust that hosel to fit their stroke and their needs, and you don't have to keep going back and making like prototype hosels over and over and over again, because it's just epoxied in. So you could literally take like a heat gun, pull it, trim some off, glue it back on, and go. And it's kind of a cool thing that you can use, especially in like, the world of tour, where every pro's a little different about what they want. I mean, you could literally just have a bunch of tubing on that truck and have putters for multiple pros, which is kind of cool. And they made a couple versions of it, not necessarily his putter, but of knucklehead type hosels for retail. They made a couple kind of limited editions and stuff, but yeah, the one he has looks like it's a pretty long hosel, so I'm going to say that thing's pretty close to face balanced, if not fully face balanced, just by looking at the photos you have. I would say it's got to be pretty close. That's a pretty long hosel.
That's exactly right. And it's a super long hosel, but yes, he wanted something perfectly face balanced, and he wanted that plumber's neck, so they went the knuckle route.
Yep. It's but like I said, from a dress though, you look at it and it just looks like a regular putter, which is kind of cool too. Like, it doesn't look funky or weird or anything like that. So, but yeah, he's got that.
Can't even tell from a dress.
Yeah, and that's what, a Phantom, like T5 or something like that. So, I mean, it's like the JT style.
Yeah,
the
that's
Phantom
the T5.
putter. Everybody's using that thing. Yeah, I really like the shape of that putter. It looks really good.
All right, so speaking of custom putters, moving right along to topic number 2. So this actually isn't a custom putter, though. So Rickie Fowler, first time ever switching into a TaylorMade putter.
Yep.
He switches into the TaylorMade Spider GT at the Genesis, as we all know. I think we talked about it last week. So I caught up with him ahead of the Honda. I said, Rickie, why don't you come talk to me about this Spider GT putter real quick? What's going on? And it actually turned into like kind of a philosophical conversation. He starts out and he's like, listen, I've tested putters from like a bunch of different companies. And what I've learned is that every single putter, if you make a good stroke and you read it right, it's going to go in. And he's like,
true.
Honestly, my confidence on the greens has, it's been affected. I haven't been putting very well the last 2 years.
True.
Whereas beforehand, like that was kind of something that I relied on. When I hit it close, I would capitalize. When I missed the green, it would save me. So he's been testing a lot of putters as we've seen the last couple of years, just testing. He's kind of looking for a switch up. He wants to switch up the mojo.
Understandable.
So he wasn't putting very well on the practice green, apparently, at Riviera, as he says it, and he starts just going around and shopping the staff bags. At tour events, like all the different companies have staff bags and the putters lined up around them. So when, just like this situation, when a guy's looking for a putter, he can kind of go shopping around those staff bags, look for something. And typically, a guy likes the head, but he doesn't like the neck. A guy likes the head, but he doesn't like the alignment line, or he doesn't like the grip, or he wants to change into a shaft. Like, very rarely do you see a guy just pick up a putter. Oh, it's perfect. He doesn't have to order anything through the tour truck. Like, he puts it in play. Rickie, on the other hand, so he's looking at all these different Spider GT heads, different alignment lines, different necks, and he puts this one down that he put into play, and he's like, yeah, this looks nice. This sits pretty good. And he takes it over to his mirror, and it kind of just lines up, and that's what he did. He just put it right into play. I think, looking at the photos, I think he took a little black Sharpie marker and kind of colored in the white paint on the sole. I don't know if that's to hide that it was a TaylorMade. I don't know if he thought that we wouldn't find out what it was. But yeah, it wasn't like a completely custom head made for him. It was just something that he took off the staff bags and he put it right into play, which I thought was pretty cool. But, the general conversation of Rickie talking about how his stroke, he was like, if you take the hole away and you just give me on a flat surface, my stroke is perfect. Like, I'm rolling it well. My stroke is great.
Yeah.
But he's like, I haven't been reading the greens very well recently. And when I do get the read right, I don't trust it. So he said multiple times, I'm trying to switch the mojo up and get something back.
Yeah, and that Spider GT is really, I think I said it last week. I really like the look of the putter. I think TaylorMade did a great job with that kind of aluminum cap on it. But yeah, it's interesting that he just basically walked over, grabbed one, said, yeah, this is all good, and let's roll. But like he said, I think if he's looking for something to just get that spark and get rolling, maybe it doesn't necessarily matter that thing is maybe a quarter-inch short or a quarter-inch long or whatever. Like, if it's not the exact specs that he had on a previous putter, maybe that's okay, because maybe that slight difference there is just going to get him kind of dialed in on more reading the putt than worrying about the putter. But it is interesting to see him in a mallet. And to see something, like I said there, that Spider GT is, I love the compact shape of it. Now, what is it? He had, I think it's just black with a white line, right, on the top? Or did they make him an orange one as well? I thought I saw two.
So they made an orange one, but the orange one was made, I believe, for Matthew Wolff.
Oh,
which would make sense because he's like, a full TaylorMade staffer. Yeah, I think people got a little bit confused with seeing the orange head, that they thought it was made for Rickie, but it wasn't. Now, if Rickie continues to stay in the Spider GT, I could see him switching over to the orange. That would make sense. Rickie, big orange guy.
Yeah. He is.
But
he is.
Yeah, to your point. I mean, to your point, I think it doesn't necessarily matter to Rickie like exactly what the head looks like. He's not getting super dialed in right now. He's kind of just looking for that spark, like you said. So he's not necessarily worried about like getting the exact toe hang or maybe even getting like the perfect lie angle. I think he's just trying to switch it up, get something that he can be comfortable with, and then down the road when he finds that right putter, he can then get it dialed in, which is an interesting way to go about it. I mean, we talk about like how to experiment with golf clubs all the time, and sometimes you just got to try stuff. You just got to try it.
And the other interesting thing to me too is that he's played basically 2 Camerons his whole professional career. I mean, he's had basically 2 Newport 2s, and that's pretty much all he's played. And now to go to something like this, which not only is it a mallet and it's a little different look, all that, but now you're going to a totally different face insert as well. That's like that pure roll. The ball probably comes off a little different, and I wonder to a guy like him again. If that's just the ball coming off just a slight bit different, whether it's, it rolls a hair faster or a hair slower, whatever it does compared to his old putter, is again just kind of sparking that putting to get him back on track and get him back to just holding some putts. But for us making that switch from a milled face to like an insert with kind of roll groove technology, probably not a huge deal. We're not going to really, it's not going to change a whole lot for us. But for a guy like him, like that may make a difference. That could really, be something that takes a little getting used to. But it'll be interesting to see how long it lasts. And like you said, does he all of a sudden get dialed in on this, get comfortable with it, and then we see some crazy orange custom whatever version, in a few months.
The vibe I get is that it's not going to last long and that he's going to keep trying putters until something works. But we'll see. We'll see.
Good luck, Rickie.
I just realized that a lot of these topics are putter topics. So if you're not into putters, I don't know what to tell you. But we got like 4 more of them. Okay, so last week we talked about the upside down Wilson logo on Charles Schwartzel's putter, and how he was doing some testing, adjusting the weight himself. He comes to the Honda. He was obviously using your beloved Catalina last week. It's out the bag. So he was talking to Lab Putters, LAB, lie angle balance. He was talking to them, Sam Hahn, their CEO, brilliant guy who kind of came up with the technology. So Charles, he's obviously been struggling to get a putter in the bag. And he had been talking back and forth with Sam. So he sees Adam Scott switched to the Mez 1 at the Phoenix Open, whatever that was, 2 weeks ago. So Charles, seeing that Adam was all fired up about this putter, gives Adam a call. He's like, "Hey, what's your experience been like with the Mez? How do you like Lab, et cetera, et cetera?" Adam's like, "I love it." Charles like, "I'm convinced." So he texts Sam after he hangs up the phone with Adam, and he's like, "Build me one, I'm ready." So he had never seen a Mez 1 in person. He had just seen it like on the text messages with Sam, and obviously online somewhere, probably Golf WRX if we're being honest. I mean, we're all over that switch. We had a bunch of photos going out, a couple different stories on WRX and PGAtour.com, because it was an interesting switch, and he obviously caught wind of it somehow. So he had never seen it in person. Sam delivers him on the putting green at Honda his own custom Mez 1. Now his is more like the stock version because Charles doesn't play with a broomstick. He plays with the short putter. So him and Sam are kind of going back and forth a bunch. They're just trying to figure out the lie angle because you got to get the lie angle right. And he was using the LAGP shaft, which kind of changes the weighting. It's a little heavier. And they were messing around with the grip. So he ended up with pretty much the stock Mez 1 head, which I think you have. But stock Mez 1 head, but he puts a little strip of lead tape on there. And
of course.
I was like, man, why isn't it the Wilson lead tape down there? That would make this too perfect.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the full circle of Charles' putter switch. But, yeah, he was just saying, because I asked him, what's your experience? Obviously Adam liked it. You had been talking about the technology. What do you think? And he's just like, man, there's something about this lie angle balance. He's like, you can basically just take it back and let it swing itself because it stays square to that arc. And he's like, as long as you trust it, like, the technology really works. Now, obviously, Charles has been struggling on the greens, and he's been putter shopping for a reason, so I won't hold it to him that he needs to have, be leading in strokes gained putting this week. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him putting a little better. I mean, he seemed like really jacked up about it and pretty confident putting around on the greens. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Switch over to lab putters a la an Adam Scott phone call. It must be nice just to call up Adam whenever you want. Like, hey, what do you think about this?
Like, exactly. Is that on speed dial? Like, hey, bro, notice you got a new putter in the bag. But I think he actually, I think he's been a big fan of kind of that technology, the lie angle balance or lie angle balance technology, only because I want to say that he had like a funky, when he was signed with PXG a couple years ago, I think he had kind of a funky PXG style. It may not be exact, but it had a similar look, and they were probably trying to achieve the same thing with it. So I think Charles kind of on board with it, and I think he's kind of like realizes that technology works for him. The one interesting thing on his, which yes, my mez is, I should have it today. I think it's showing up today from the tracking. But the one interesting thing about his is that Lab does kind of like custom alignment marks and stuff like that, depending on what you need. They have a lot of options. And he went with just like a really large sight dot, which was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, a good looking putter. And I think, Lab's got, with that mez, I think they got a good thing going. I think they're going to attract a lot of golfers with it just because it definitely is a more traditional look. But yeah, I mean, with that the matte black LA golf shaft and all that, it's a really good looking putter. So hopefully he finds his game because his bag is pretty sweet. I mean, let's be honest. Charles' whole what's in the bag is pretty dope.
His whole setup's sick. Like those irons.
Dude.
I remember last year because I went up to his bag. He had the Mura 001s, and they were all ported. Like he had 3 or 4 ports on each iron. Then I go to look at his bag this week. I'm pretty sure that they're the same iron heads that were ported, and he just has a bunch of lead tape covering them. So he's going back and forth with swing weights or something. But I was asking his caddy, I was like, what's the deal? Like, does someone on the trucks do his lead tape? Like, do they do all the work? And he's like, no, he literally does everything himself. Like, all the grips, all the shafts, shaft tipping,
really?
Like, lead tape on there. He does it all himself. Like, you gotta respect that.
Dude, that's pretty awesome. But I wonder, like, does he just like roll into the truck? Like, I mean, he's got a Sim 2 Max 3 wood. Does he just like roll into the TaylorMade truck? Like, hey Wade, boys, Shane, I got it. Like, I'll take care of this one for you. Take a seat, get a cool drink. I'll put this bad boy together. Like, does he just roll onto the truck and do it himself, or I'd be interested to know like how he builds this stuff or where he builds it.
Okay, that's what I'm doing next time I see him. I'm going to ask him, like, what the process is like. Because if he just walks onto the TaylorMade truck and he's like, all right, Wade, 5-minute break for you, bud, you're off. That would be so funny. I need to get that's good. That's a good lead. I need to get the backstory on Charles' club making techniques. All right, so here's 2 more putter topics. Neither putter will go into play. That much is for sure.
Well, you never know.
Well, I think I know on this one. So every time a Ping professional wins a professional tournament, Ping makes a gold putter out of it.
Gold-plated putter.
Well, gold-plated, and then if they win a major, it's solid gold.
Yep.
Fun fact there. So I was always curious about how they present these putters. And me and Greg Moore, the Golf WRX photographer, we're just hanging around the putting green. We're watching Lee Westwood do a little putter testing. He's always changing something with the putter. And all of a sudden, my boy Kent Notes over at Ping, he's the Ping Tour rep, he kind of just starts shuffling through with a little something behind his back, and me and Greg are looking like, what's he got there? Then we see the gold cover shining. We're like, is this it? Is he about to present Lee with the gold putter right now? And that's exactly what happened. He goes up to Lee right there on the putting green. He presents him. I guess he got a win. What was it? 2019 Abu Dhabi.
2020 Abu Dhabi. Yep. HSBC.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So HSBC. So he presents him with the putter. We hear him talking, and they were like, "How many of these is it now?" And he's like, "I think this is my 60th." He's got 60 gold putters, and he also has, like, by far the most amount of models. Like, he has a bunch of answers, then a bunch of mallets, then a bunch of, like, the fetch putters, which is what this one was, a fetch putter.
Yep.
And because he was remarking, he was like, this has to be one of the first times you presented me with a gold putter where I'm actually still using the model of the gold putter that you're giving me. Because he was actually still using a fetch. Now, not exactly the same one. I think he was testing like a bunch of different prototypes, but I thought the whole exchange was really cool. And we were standing right there, so we got photos of like the moment he got it. You know, he was all smiley face and stuff, and then he like bends down like he's looking like he's ready to hit a putt with it. I thought that was so funny. But he didn't probably go in the well, it goes into the vault. I was going to say it goes into his trophy case, but no, it goes into his vault. I don't think they keep those.
I thought they made two of the gold plateds. I thought the player got one and the one went in the vault. I thought, but that could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure on that.
That could be wrong. Maybe they were just presenting. Maybe they presenting him with the one that goes into the vault, and then they'll like ship him the one that he keeps.
Maybe. But the cool thing is that the fetch, the Sigma 2, which is the one he uses, has like a rubber insert on the face. And for these putters, when they do it, they etch in like the player's name, the tournament they won, the year.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in a rubber insert, so they've actually had to fix a metal insert onto the front of it in order to put his details of the win. But they even etched in the same like grooves as the plastic, the TPU insert would have. They kind of etched them in and then etched his stuff around it, which I think is a pretty cool detail that I wouldn't have expected. Just, you're like, oh, gold-plated putter, and then like, well, what do you do with the rubber? Like, there you go, you make a metal one. But that cover is sweet. Like that, like I just want the cover. It's like
I know
patent leather gold. It's pretty sweet. And then the other part that I love is like the little note that's attached. That's just like held on by a string, and it just says like, "Congratulations on your win. Thank you for using a ping putter." It's just super casual. Like, hey, thanks for winning. We appreciate it.
I just thought all of it was so cool. So, had to bring it up on the podcast. If you want to see the pictures, over on golfwrx.com/forums, torn pre-release, you can check those out. People are chirping about it in the forums. Pretty cool. Pretty cool to be standing right there and just see it all go down. It was pretty casual, but it was also like this is a moment. This is a cool little moment. Then there was another gold commemorative putter for one Brooks Koepka.
Yep.
So he had this was for his U.S. Open win at Bethpage. They made him up a commemorative gold putter. And we got photos of that, and I wanted to just get Brooks' take on it. So, I asked him real quick while he was walking off the putting green. I was like, "Hey, Brooks, what do you think about the gold putter getting presented with it? Like, pretty cool." And he was like, "Yeah, it's my fourth one." I was like, "That's a stunt. That's a stunt," because I think they only do it for the majors, So it was like.
Yeah,
it was just pretty funny. His response was just cool, and then I was like, "What do you do with all the other ones?" He was kind of walking away at that moment. I was like, "What do you do with all the other ones?" He's like, "Honestly, I have no idea where they are. Like, I just moved." He just doesn't know where. Just in a box somewhere. They just got boxed up, and Who knows? That's the luxury of winning a bunch of majors. Like, that kind of stuff, I guess, starts to not matter as much, but those would probably not go out of my sight, especially being a Scotty Terillium. It's like, ooh, too cool.
Yeah. The interesting that there's one comment in the forum, because like you said, the forum kind of goes off on this, and one of the guys, Blade Hunter, or not Blade Hunter, I'm sorry, this guy Medson was like, wait, he's like, I thought Koepka used a button back in all his major wins, because I think he just recently switched to that what is that, TN2 or whatever it's called, or TNP2.
TNP2. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wait, isn't that a recent addition to his bag? Like, that's not the old one. So I was a little confused on that as well. I'm gonna have to go back through the photos and see. That's funny that someone picked that up, because cool. I was thinking that too.
Yeah. But it is pretty cool that they basically take that Terillium copper insert, and it looks like before they set it in the head, they lay it down, stamp in there, 2019 PGA Championship. They put 272, how many strokes and all that, which is pretty cool. And then they stamp that thing and then probably lay it in there. But the finish is definitely different. Like the Sigma 2, the one that Lee Westwood had, super bright, polished gold. Like, it is gold. And this is almost like a little bit more of a bronze look to it, even though somebody posted like another photo later on of one of I think the same putter or whatever, would looked a little more gold, but it doesn't have that same like high polish, gold that you would think of. This is a little more antique-y, a little more brushed finish, but it's a pretty putter.
Yeah, it is. I actually didn't personally see it in person because it was Greg who got the photos of them. With photos, like, it's always hard to pick up the exact colorway. But either way, let's get on to some topics about clubs that actually might go into play. And this particular right. topic, these clubs have been in play for years. So there's this guy in South Florida who just cleans up their section champ. His name's Alan Morin. If I mispronounce it, I'm definitely super sorry, but it's Morin. He's 52 years old. He's won the South Florida PGA Section Championship 11 times. Like, we're not talking about 11. We're not talking about, like, I don't want to offend any certain state, but we're not talking about like a northern state where it's like, the PGA section's a little bit soft. We're talking about South Florida, and this guy just cleans up. So you get like a bid into the tournament. You get a tee time on Thursday, like you're in the tournament if you win the PGA section champ. So this is his 11th time playing in the event. I think he's playing in a couple majors. He's playing in a bunch of other PGA Tour events. Like, the dude is super legit. So Greg got photos of his what's in the bag, and I'm just pulling it up now. And talk about a gamer set.
Talk about a gamer set from 2014.
Like this 2011.
Yeah.
So go through the bag a little bit and give your thoughts, because this is like the perfect Golf WRX bag. It was made for the Golf WRX forums right here.
It kind of was, and the first thing I'm going to say, the most amazing thing of the whole bag, which is just gold, is he's got an RBZ 3-wood. Yes, the white, black, and green, the original, not the Stage 2, any of that. The original RBZ 3-wood, and it looks like it's in mint condition,
pristine.
Like, the paint doesn't look chipped, even the sole, the paint's not messed up. Those things, when you looked at them wrong, the paint would chip. And somehow his is like immaculate. I don't know how that is. And then it's got a TP shaft from an R11S. So what happened was back when this all went down back then, well, TaylorMade, in order to kind of have the perception that their pros weren't playing different shafts, all the manufacturers had to paint shafts with the same graphics. And this one is an R11S TP, so the TP badge usually meant this was like a real deal shaft from whoever company. It's from Matrix, who's no longer in business, and it doesn't even tell you what shaft it is. It just tells you it's stiff flex. It's just an amazing piece in that bag that this guy just takes care of his stuff. But he's got 3 hybrids. He's got a 2, a 16 degree, a 21 degree, and a 23.5 degree. So he's got a 2, a 4, and a 5 hybrid.
And those are their rescues from like 2011, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like super old rescues. He's got the lead tape. Yeah, they're literally just called TaylorMade Rescue 2011. I had to look them up too.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rescue 11s. I was like, what the hell? He evidently was a huge fan of matrix shafts because he's got matrix shafts in all of these. And again, company hasn't been in business in years. But he's got the black ties, which are kind of a legendary hybrid shaft, in the 2 lower lofts. And then he runs into the Daniel Berger Special TaylorMade Tour Preferred MC forged irons with KBS Tour 90 shafts in stiff flex. I mean, just legit.
It's one of the greatest what's in the bags I've seen in the last 5 years. Not even kidding.
Unbelievable.
I mean, this guy's unbelievably legit. All he does is clean up. South Florida PGA section championships, and he's got a bag from 2011, and I don't think much has changed since then. I mean, he has a new Strixon driver. What else does he have in there that's even new? What are his wedges?
That's Scotty. He's got a Circle T, a Scotty TN5.
See, no, but I think he just
T5.
picked up the
He's got
Scotty.
that.
Like, I think he just picked up the Scotty on the putting green at Honda. Like, he has a really old Odyssey Versa number 7, and there's no way that's not the putter he uses. He's got like an ounce of lead tape on there too, in the back cavity of the 7. It's unbelievable.
It's just an amazing bag, and it is. I think you're 100% right. I think you walked over the putting green, saw that Scotty, and was just like, "Cool, this is kind of cool. I'll take this," which is fine. Like that's what those bags are there for. Like, don't get people thinking he's stealing something. He's not. Like that's
no, he's not
what they're
stealing.
there for.
But he definitely has a buddy like back at the club who's like, "Hey, while you're out there on the putting green, like we know you're never going to change this putter, but you know they're going to offer you stuff. Just pick one up. Like pick one up for me, please."
And the other great part is that like all the grips don't match. Like the driver has just like a Tour Velvet BCT cord. The 3-wood has a white and black Golf by Decade. And then we get into like the irons have Z grip cords, and then the wedges have Z grip cords. I mean, it's such a random bag, but like you said, the dude has got an insane game, and it just doesn't matter. Like he just kills with it. But it is so funny. It's a funny bag.
Every single club is a different tool, Knudsen, so they shouldn't all have the same grip.
That's
You
true.
gotta fit each club individually.
He definitely did, because this is, I mean, it's crazy, but it's a great bag. It really is. Like I love the old matrix shafts. It kind of brings you back to the old days.
Yeah, so he wins what's in the bag of the week, of the year, and probably the last decade. So big shout out to Alan Morin. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that, but let's move on to another bag that has some old stuff in it. This is always one of my favorite bags to look in, just to see if something's changed, and nothing ever does. So Henrik Stenson, he cracked the face of his old Diablo Octane, the classic Diablo Octane, 13 degrees. He's got the Graphloy blue in there, and I think it cracked around 2020. Somewhere like in the beginning, middle of 2020. I know he had a bout where he was trying to fit into a different 3-wood, and finally he was just like, all right, I'm going back to the Diablo. So we checked out his bag this week, still in there. You gotta love it. Just committed to it. Has so many good memories with it, I'm sure, and he hits it, I mean, farther than 99.9% of people hit their drivers. And then he's still got the legacy black irons in there. From what year did you say they were from?
I want to say they're like around 2012. I think they're like a 2012-ish, 11-ish, 12-ish, right around there.
It's interesting how many tour players still use irons from like 10 years ago.
Yeah. They're Yeah, the Legacy Blacks, I remember when they first came out, we got, at the same time, I think we got Diablo Forged, and they didn't look near as good as these did. And these are that, like, two-piece, like, has, like, a face laser welded in. I mean, they're kind of like a player's speed iron in a sense. And he's been rocking sets of them ever since they came out. And I don't know how many sets he's gone through, and I don't know how many sets he has left. These definitely look like they've, there's paint film missing from the bottom, and they've got some chatter and some wear. So these have been around a little while. But I don't know how many sets does he have left? They were, and if you're not familiar with Legacy Black, that was a Callaway for overseas, mostly Asia. Was the market for these. These weren't released in the U.S. Europe may have got them a little bit, but they were basically focused on the Asian market. And he's still rocking them. The iron shafts, half of them, the labels are like gone. It's just he's a guy who just doesn't change, man. But the Diablo Octane 2 or 3 wood, I had one. It was an absolute monster. I had a 15 degree, and that was the first club I ever put hot melt in. Fun fact.
Did you mess it up? How heavy is that thing?
Probably.
Yeah. You overjuiced it by a lot.
I don't have it anymore.
Swing weight Z0.
Oh, probably. Who knows where the hot melt even was in the head, too? It probably was, like, on the face. I mean, who knows?
I'm gonna follow up on this topic, though. I'm going to ask Stenson how many of those sets he has left. Because I'm super curious about that, too.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you rock with the same iron for 10 years and not blow through them? And they don't make them anymore. So is he on eBay like Burger?
No.
Is he fishing in Instagram DMs, or what's the deal with that? I'm gonna follow up. I'm gonna find out.
Yeah.
And that'll bring us.
What's the Callaway Pre-Owned?
So that'll bring us to our last topic.
Oh, sorry.
And this is a new club. So it looks like PXG's Generation 5 is officially on the way. We just caught our first glimpse of a PXG 0311 Gen 5 Hybrid. Knudsen, I know you saw the pictures. Initial thoughts. You're more of a hybrid guy than I am, so I'll let you take this final topic.
You are right. I did jump in there. I think I may even commented in the forum thread.
True golf
that we posted these, but yeah, that's right. So 0311 Gen 5. I've been a fan of most of the PXG hybrids. I think they kind of nail the shape, and a lot of it is very Ping inspired, which Ping does a great job with their hybrid shapes as well. But this one here just has a really good, compact look to it. The roundness, the curvature of the back is really kind of traditional looking. It's got a really deep face, and when you look at it like from a dress, it looks like it's got a real square toe. But when you set it down, it doesn't look that way. But yeah, it got a deep face. I think players who play their hybrids off the tee a lot on short par fours and things like that are going to find this thing to be. Probably looked at this thing to be really, really good or something they want to try. And then having the 3 movable weights, you got to assume you can slap some heavy weights out in the toe and make this thing pretty anti-left. But overall, and the shape looks really good. I really want to try it. I know PXG is kind of more direct-to-consumer now. They're not really in shops. But it's definitely a club that I would definitely want to try this year.
If you like that club review from Brian Knudsen, why don't you tell them where they could find more?
You mean the Club Junkie podcast on Golf WRX Radio?
Talk to him.
Okay, yeah. I mean, listen, I do have the Club Junkie podcast. I do not, unfortunately, have Tursky with me, but on Thursdays, the day before this goes out, I do have a show that I talk about some equipment that I hit, and it's a great time. Sit back, it's relaxing. We have a great time.
If you love gear,
you want to check it out.
If you love gear, if you love getting techie, testing stuff out, the Club Junkie podcast is where you want to be.
Yep.
If you want 2 guys just talking about golf, this is where you want to be. So that'll do it for our episode this week. Next week, I will not be at Bay Hill. Taking the week off of travel.
Oh, really?
And then I'll be back at it at the Players. So I'll just be I'll be on the sidelines looking at Greg's gear photos, just like the rest of us. So I won't have the Inside the Ropes exclusives next week. Maybe we'll get Greg Moore on to be a guest. That's not a promise, but
he's always fun.
That's like a half tease because I think that would be fun to get him on. He's an absolute gem. We went to the Woods Jupiter together this week. You know, being in West Palm Beach, close enough to the Woods Jupiter. Oh yeah, we split a meal together. I won't say any more because if he comes on next week, I'll want to talk about it. So we'll save that for next week. That's a half tease on the guest. That's not a promise. But that'll do it for Two Guys Talking Golf. Thanks for listening.